Welcome to Dreamed It, Then Real Lifed It, the podcast where we dive deep into the journey from vision to reality. I'm Kelly Jackson, your guide on this path of self-discovery, transformation, and intentional living. Here, we explore everything from mindset shifts and personal growth to spiritual alignment and entrepreneurship, sharing insights, stories, and actionable wisdom to help you live a life in harmony with your dreams. Every episode will dig into what it means to not only dream big, but to actually consciously create the life you envision. Let's turn your dreams into real life. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. Today, I am super excited to be sitting here with Casey Phillips. He is the founder of the Walls Project, amongst other things. We're going to get into it in a minute. And let me tell you why we are all so fortunate for this conversation, because when I approached Casey about coming onto the podcast, he actually told me that he's purposefully at a point in his career where he's declining interviews and everything, but he's got this amazing team of 20 plus people at the Walls Project that, like any of those people, they're the voice of the Walls. And any of those people could come and talk on the show. And this is what I ended up saying to him. I think this is the story right here, Casey. I would love to have you specifically come and talk about why you even started this, right? Like, what was the concept for the foundation of this organization? And then how did you build it? Like, what called you to want to do this kind of work? And then what was the process of building this company, scaling it sustainably, and then putting in a team of trustworthy people that you were able to reach a point in your life where you are able to step back and you don't have to be the face of the company because you can trust that you have all the right people in place. This is the story as an entrepreneur, as an artist, as someone who loves humans in general. This is the story I want to hear. And this is the story Casey has so generously agreed to come on and share with us today. So, Casey, enough for me. The floor is yours.
Wow, thanks, Kelly. Yeah, just in everything that you just said, we'll be lucky to do it in an hour.
Right.
I love that. So, hello, humans that are listening to Kelly's incredible podcast, and I'm thrilled to be here. Um, I am from Louisiana. I've lived here the greater majority of my childhood and my adult life, but the other half of my adult life I've spent living in Los Angeles, California, in Colorado, and quite frankly, being very nomadic as an entrepreneur. Since age 21, I waited tables, and managed restaurants and music venues, in my early years. But in all actuality, I've never ever worked for anyone, right? I've prepared a resume, I think, twice in 30 years, and I've always done my own thing. And it's given me a different currency than just money, right? The currency is freedom. And most recently, in the last 15 years of my career working in the nonprofit, with the Walls Project, it's given me the currency of fulfillment, which in no kind of way, shape, or form did I really understand what that was in my 20s and my 30s, especially focused on chasing paper and, providing for, family and providing, for the very, let's just say, incredibly celebratory life that I had in the music industry. And I know I'm not on camera, but I'm smiling, and I think you can hear it. Um, the work in community, and when the shift happened in my mid 30s to do the nonprofit work, what I ultimately realized was what I was always seeking was not to live for myself, but truly to live for others. And so the work of the Walls Project has, yeah, I mean, I've poured my heart, blood, sweat, and tears into it, and thousands of people have contributed to the Walls at this point. It is truly a movement. And I can promise you, not just me, we've all gotten more out of it than what we've given. And the work has been truly like a nirvana moment of fulfillment. And yeah, that's kind of like where I am today in this wonderful year of 2025. Even though there are challenges out there in our country and our world, I stay radically optimistic on what the future of the human race can be, as we come together and actually take care of one another. But we'll get into that more as your questions kind of point me in that direction. So it's awesome to be here, Kelly. Thank you.
Oh, I love that. I love that so much. Let me tell you what I love everything that you said, and especially hearing a little bit about your background. And it's relatable because there was a shift there for me as well, where I reached a point in my life as well where I was like really I was like, wait, do I have a servant's heart? Do I want to be of service to others? Because that's what it's feeling like. And that was a shift because I don't think that was a priority for me in my younger years. Like you said, my teens, my 20s, I wasn't really thinking of how can I go out and do things that are going to help the community and help humanity and all of this. And so, what a beautiful thing that comes with age and wisdom, right? Where we kind of experience that internal shift where we recognize that giving back is so fulfilling and fulfilling what you also said, because that's how Casey and I first met back in maybe 2018. I was invited by another artist friend who was doing a mural for MLK Fest. She's like, let's do this together. That's where we met. And I've got an opportunity to be involved with the Walls Project and some of the sub branches of the Walls, like Baton Roots. We'll talk about that as well. And just like Casey said, you get back so much more than you give. Even when you show up and you participate and you're a part of the organization, the way that it fuels you and helps you with your own path of growth and expansion is really hard to describe, but you can feel it.
Feel it. It's true. And, and just on the outside chance, there's a few folks that are listening right now that they're like, ugh, this is too woo-woo. Don't worry, I'll get super raw as long as Kelly gives me the impression, I mean, the permission to use all the words, including the four-letter ones today.
Yep,
I'll
you
talk
got
about the
permission.
struggle, right? Like the struggle and the business that's behind this. At the end of the day, running a nonprofit, you're not running a patty cake factory, you're running a business. And there's real things to be learned, from the business of nonprofit, especially when you come from even a social capitalist, which I guess I kind of fancied myself towards the end of my time in music. There's a drastic shift in the business model between pure capitalism and nonprofit work, but make no mistake about it, it's a business, and you're held accountable by, quite frankly, you're held accountable at such a greater level of scrutiny with your IRS designation, of nonprofit, because there's just so many limitations on the use of funds. And if I could just give a piece of business advice to anybody that is serious about nonprofit work and service work and actually does want to develop the business model, the very first thing that you should get is the best accountant that you can possibly get. Legal, there's a lot of resources for legal, but to be honest, our CFO is part of the heartbeat of the organization. Our director of operations is the heartbeat of the organizations, and I want to say their names, Tom and Helena. Helena's been with the organization for 10 years and is transitioning to a new role because she's actually moving to Japan. And Tom, he moved here from Belgium and he's been with us for now almost 6 years. And, that is probably just as important is, the incredible artists that we work with that paint 8-story murals, the incredible coding, professional software engineers and coders that teach, in our youth programs, or, SK and Mitchell and their entire team at the Baton Rouge Community Farm. The back office side of nonprofit is really important. And it's that's where you should really focus your energy on, is getting that tight and that in order before you start being of service, because you cannot serve people if you are not ultimately handling business in your own house. And that, so I'm very fortunate that I came from, running businesses, businesses in the private industry, in the private sector, for 15 years. I don't have any degrees in nonprofit or philanthropy, and I'm not certified as a, fundraising professional. I work with those humans, like I work with humans that have the academic training and the, in the certifications, but I really take kind of a gunslinging entrepreneurial spirit to the work. And especially when it comes to the arts, because it's a very fluid industry and it requires like just as much business acumen as it does the incredible talent that people have with a brush. So
Absolutely. Let's do, because I do want to get into the business. This part of what Dreamed It Then Real Life It is about is entrepreneurship. And I do want to get into the business, but you said on the off chance, and I just realized there's another off chance that some people might not know what the Walls Project is. So let's just would you mind giving a quick rundown of what the Walls Project is and what they do? And if you want to go ahead here and mention some of the other programs that are branches, but all fall under the Walls Project.
sure. So, and everybody, I'll do the short version. And if you ever really want to learn about the walls, we actually do have a website that stays updated, and that's thewallsproject.org if you'd like to do a deep dive. And we build as in an open source manner. So, that's the beautiful thing about the technology industry in the 80s and 90s. You write your code and then you share it freely, because there's other people that are better than you at things and they build on it. And then before you know it, thousands of people are working on the same thing in the same code, and it makes, for the magic to happen. So we're happy to share any of our practices at all times if you ever would like to get a deeper dive. But, long and short, we started as an arts organization in 2012, and with a, social justice, backbone, right? Before, people were really saying social justice, but that's what we were. And we've ultimately evolved into a human rights organization, and we care about people, right? So we have direct programs of mural arts, we have education programs, workforce development, agroforestry programs, and we lead large-scale community cleanups with hundreds of organizations and thousands of volunteers during MLK Day, Earth Day, Juneteenth, and during the fall. And that is really important work, and it's incredible. We do that. We started in Louisiana, but we expanded to Dallas, Texas in 2019, and then we scaled to Denver and Durango, Colorado in 2022. And the direct services is what people know us as. A lot of people like see the murals across Louisiana and they're like, oh, that's what the Walls Project does. Or they've run, we've worked with I think, let me be accurate, I think almost 4,000 youth and adults in our Futures Fund coding program that we've had for over a decade. We were teaching computer science when it wasn't even really in schools in Louisiana, because they didn't think that, technology was going to stick, I guess. But yeah, that was, and some people only know us, by working with our urban agricultural program, Baton Roots Community Farm out in Breck Howell Park. But we also have 11, satellite sites at East Baton Rouge Parish Housing Authority communities. And we also have, education and mini farms in 3 high schools in North Baton Rouge. So, people kind of enter into the walls in all these different directions, but it all kind of coalesces into an interconnected program approach in communities that have been historically underserved, as it either systematically disinvestment, There's a variety of factors, in these days, but at the end of the day, the communities that we work in South Dallas, East Denver, in North Baton Rouge, all have common coefficients. It's kind of almost a math algorithm, right? With the quality of the schools, the access to affordable and reliable transportation. Equal pay is a big deal, right? In states and communities where equal pay gaps are larger, digital divides, large amount of humans where English is a second language. You look at all these different factors, and those are based around the 9 drivers of poverty. That framework is what we created the One Rouge Coalition around, which is over 400 organizations. We actively have been leading weekly calls every Friday, from 8:30 at 8:30 in the morning for the last 248 weeks ever since COVID, where thousands of people come in and out on these Friday calls. And we have, based in the 9 drivers of poverty, but it's not just talk, it's also about taking action, sharing resources, and not gatekeeping, and really kind of creating this community cohesion that's both geographic and focus area work. So that is the short version of the walls. Believe it or not, that's as abbreviated as I can make it. But if anybody would ever want to learn more about our individual programs, as Kelly referenced at the beginning, I would probably refer you to all of the incredible humans that are leading that program work and in community every single day, because there's no better people to talk to than the people who are doing it. So.
Absolutely. Okay. So that's going to lead us to this question then. We talk about the people, and you also mentioned earlier about, because let's be honest, as an entrepreneur, there are challenges, there's contrast. It's not all butterflies and rainbows all the time. And so one of the things I think many entrepreneurs, especially solopreneurs, right? People who are just starting out, or when you haven't built a team yet, it's kind of like, where do you start? And then when you start building a team, it's like knowing what to do to build an aligned team, to build a team that you can trust, that, right, that sees the vision, that shows up for it. So what has that journey been like for you, scaling the business where when you start out, you're wearing all the hats, you're doing all the things, and there reaches a point when you realize, I cannot slash do not want to continue to do this on my own. I need to bring in others, right? I can't grow and expand this doing it all on my own. So what was that journey of expansion like for you? Who was the first team member you brought on? You mentioned the importance of starting with a really good accountant, and I back you on that 100%. But aside from that, what would you say?
Yeah, well, it depends on the vertical, right? Truly, it depends on the vertical. I only have experience in 3 verticals directly. I spent my time, I've spent my time managing and opening and owning, bars and restaurants for years. The second vertical was just actually the music industry itself. Everybody sees the hair and they assume that I can play the guitar, but truly, my goddess wife is definitely the more creative of our household, and she's got a voice of an angel.
Uh,
And then
yes, she does.
the third, yeah, amen, right? And then
She does.
the third vertical is the nonprofit sector, which I can, and I'll come back to this, but the nonprofit sector makes actually no business sense whatsoever. The way that it functions doesn't function like normal, balance sheets. And, our CFO, Tom Donnelly he leads workshops on trying to help people understand, like, nonprofit accounting is almost counterintuitive to, your normal business environment. But, when I look at those 3 verticals, all of them start with someone, right? There's one person that has a vision, and then sometimes they bring in business partners, and I've had that scenario as well. That you can look at it as, okay, I'm going to do a DBA, right, and just do a little solopreneur thing, or start an LLC and just do your own thing, and then maybe have some hourly workers underneath you in scale. Or if you are like wanting to start an LLP or an S corp, you look for a business partner that you can trust, and that complements your skill set. Kind of a yin to the yang kind of piece. And I would just encourage people to not do business with family and friends in that way. If you're going to start a business, I think that it usually goes really bad. I'm not even speaking from in my personal experience, because I feel like I've been smart enough never to do it. And I said, but I've been a business coach for a long time, and yeah, it almost always does go bad. But anyway, going back into the positive, if you do have a business partner, the contract on the front end is really important, because it's all like hunky dory and wonderful and everybody's excited on the front end, but you write your exit strategy on the front end in that guiding document, and you talk about, like, if shit goes sideways, like who's left holding the bag. And I've had that, and just in full transparency on this call, I don't want to try to portray myself as some like titan of business, and everything that I've ever touched turned to gold. That is not the case. I often describe myself as a kind of a like a prize fighter that's 14-10, right? I said I've won more than I've lost. I've gotten knocked out before, and I've had a couple of knockout successes, and and I think that's the norm, right?
Mhm.
Most entrepreneurs are not successful until they're in their 40s. I know everybody thinks that, you see these one of a kinds of, wonders of the business world in their 20s, and $400 million in seed A capital. And, you see all these things, and that's great. I mean, they're true, but the reality is it usually takes people about 20 years to figure out what the hell they're doing, and to do it well, and to stop making the same mistakes. And so if you are an entrepreneur and you're just starting out, regardless of your age, just understand there's no substitute for time. And the biggest thing is like showing up, being willing to be the person that scrubs the toilets. Never ask your team to do anything that you haven't done yourself 100 times. And once you get to that point, then you can start bringing other people in. Like, you need to know how to do every single thing. Um, in the effort not to be too long-winded, I'll leave with this example. Not everybody, a lot of people are like, oh, I'd love to own a restaurant. I'd love to open a restaurant. I'd love to open a bar. I'd love to open a music venue. Usually you have to really ask yourself why you want to start the business, not as in like, in casually stop, look in the mirror, right? Look deep into your eyes and say out loud, why do you want to start this? Why do you want to do it? And why are you the right person to do it? Because, my friend, the reality is that most people have the attention span of a gnat. And to start a successful business, you're going to be in the red probably for 12 or 18 months. You might start making money in year 3, and it's year 5 through 10 that is the hardest part, is to maintain the success and maintain it winning. Because people don't really teach you that in business school. They teach you everything but how to be successful, right? So it's like, once you're successful, that's a whole nother level of Jedi that you need to. So if you're going to start a restaurant, I'd recommend, before you start a restaurant, getting a job as washing dishes at a restaurant, and then work the fry cook line, and then be a hostess, then be a front of the house waiter, know how to bartend, work with the accountant and the bookkeeper for the restaurant, see the back office side before you start it, know every position on the field, because at some point you will have to do it. People will not show up for work, and work still has to get done. And you're going to have to know every position on the field, and you have to be willing to be married to it in order to be successful with it. Just to be very clear, I did not go to the Michael Scott School of Business, for all the office heads there. And, there's a million ways of going about it. I'm just giving you my perspective. And that's, what I've seen and heard, after 3 decades of trying to be successful. So
And that's why you're here, because we wanted to hear your perspective on it.
thanks, Kelly.
you know and I enjoy, and people do, this is beneficial. It doesn't matter whether, even if you're an entrepreneur or not, there's still something here for you. And especially if you are an entrepreneur, guys, I'm with Casey on that. I've been an entrepreneur since college. And yes, yes, about not everything is in, some of the things that you really think like, oh, this is it. That's not the thing that ends up being it, right? You have your wins, you have your losses, and that resilience is necessary. You have to be resilient to be an entrepreneur. And the why that you were mentioning, the why is what keeps you going. The why, if you don't really know, like he said, you can't look at yourself in the eyes, in the mirror and say, why do I want to do this? Why do I think I'm the person for this? If you have a really, really strong why, then that will create more resilience. And even when the business ebbs and flows, when the challenges and contrasts arrive, you you know why you're doing it and you keep going. If you're not if that why is just not so deep and you just don't have so much clarity on why this is what you're being called to do, you might keep doing it, but then you might not even love what you're doing. And I don't know. I'm with you on the whole why thing, guys. And for me, Casey, you may have an opinion on this. For me, the why can't just be money, guys. If the why is money and that's the only reason, oh, this will make me a lot of money. Because I've been there, done that. And that doesn't go well either. If the only why is you think that this is gonna make you some money, I think you're missing something. What do you think, Casey? I don't know. I mean, it's a personal
Yeah,
opinion.
well, I mean, I'm just as the, is the resident dissident in all circles. I'm just going to just for fun disagree with you,
Okay.
but I don't disagree with you.
Great.
Look, deep down inside, everything I have loved, everything that I've done, every minute of the day and every year. Nope. Sometimes the suck button gets stuck for a whole business quarter, and you're like,
Oh
God,
yeah.
this is tough. And that's the real. But
Mm.
I've always loved what I've done. And, I love music. I don't love just listening to music. I worked in the live music space. I loved what human beings, the way they interacted with each one another. I love the fact that so many people, met their partner at my shows. I love the fact that the shows that I threw, maybe even kept someone from doing harm to themselves because it was just that moment that they needed, right? I love the power and the vibration of what music can do, right? But at 35, I realized that, I mean, besides the fact that the music industry 15 years ago became like a no-win situation for independents through corporate mergers, specifically when Ticketmaster and Live Nation and Irvin like all merged together, they ultimately created a monopoly in the music industry, and it kind of killed the fun of it for me. But I also have to be very honest outside of the business. My why became getting shaky because my son was getting older and I felt an obligation, as many breeders do, right, to make the world into a better place for them. And I started feeling like my work was very momentary. Everything was about moments and not about legacy, right? And ultimately, even though it was joy for people, I didn't really necessarily feel like I was impacting people's lives on, what I was called to do. And, some people would call it a ghost career for me. I disagree. I think I had 4 lifetimes of fun in those 15 years in the music industry. And trust me, the music industry is not the sex, drugs, and rock and roll only that people think it is. It's actually lawyers and accounts. And I was a stockbroker. I was yelling at agents all day and slamming phones, but I was also like, also having an incredible amount of joy. But when my why got shaken, and where I felt like unfulfilled, and I didn't even really understand what that is, because men, until we hit our like mid to late 30s, we don't actually really know much. If you're self-actualized at 28, then disregard what I just said, young human. But most Southern men specifically, we need a little time to mature and ferment like a nice wine. But when my why got shaken, yeah, I agree with you, Kelly. But I've also known some incredibly successful entrepreneurs that sell concrete, and toilet supplies and, and things. And
Yeah.
they turn their brains off the moment that they leave the yard, and they are just stacking cash. And I like to call them blue jean millionaires, right? And and sometimes they're the most humble people on the planet because they don't derive their identity from their work. They just support themselves and their family if they choose to have one. And they give back to their community, they give to their churches. And, those cats are usually, coaching little league teams or volunteering on Sundays at the food kitchen. I'm not saying all those people are perfect people either. I'm just saying that, there's a lot of different reasons and a lot of different motivations that people go into business for themselves. But yeah, I mean, it's, for me, though, the why is incredibly important. And again, going back to the other currencies of freedom, right? And fulfillment, those are big whys, man. And it just really depends on like what you're looking to get out of this crazy, crazy life, spinning what is it? Yeah, I can't forget how fast the Earth is spinning every day, but I do know that the core of our Earth now is turning in a different direction after 1 billion years. And I'm still trying to wrap my head around why. So anyway, that's another one of my whys, which we'll get into with space here in a second. So.
Oh, and I love that about space. So you mentioned your son there, and you're a father as well. I'm a mother too, and congratulations, your son's in college now. That's pretty incredible. Um, what do you feel like? And you mentioned legacy there, and I really resonate with that as well. And so, definitely with the Walls Project and all of the branches of it, that screams legacy. And so, was that something that you had an intention going into this chapter of your life when you began the Walls? Were you thinking legacy at that point, like when you were kind of realizing that maybe my time in the music industry is coming to an end and I'm being called to pursue a new path? Was that one of the driving forces, was kind of that shift of realizing I really want more of a lasting impact, a legacy type of thing?
Yes, and yes-ish, right?
Yes.
Yes-ish. I don't claim that in 2011, when we first started like really seriously talking about the walls, that I had like a 20-year far off vision, but I did have a 10-year vision. My journey is somewhat unique. I mean, all of our journeys are unique, but I had moved back from Los Angeles to Baton Rouge, which is like, going from, moving from Mars to like, the smallest little moon off of Jupiter. It was a culture shock. I had a really hard time assimilating back into Louisiana after spending, so many years in Los Angeles, San Francisco, and New York, with most of my heartbeats. It was difficult, but I had to, raise my son, and that's where our family was, and that's where I had to be. So I actually moved back pretty pissed off about being in Baton Rouge. And I think that when people who came across me in those early years of the walls, they felt that razor edge of my elbow. I was completely dissatisfied with where my hometown had evolved to, or not evolved to. I should be really careful with my words. And and I was just absolutely infuriated, on the divides and the lack of, equitable distribution of resources. And these are all like jargony words. I'll just use plain speak. The haves and have-nots were clearly divided by racial lines in the city, and that pissed me off. I hated the fact that all of my friends who identified as LGB, it was actually LGB at the time. T had just kind of come into the conversation as far as a movement goes, that they were literally scared for their life to walk down the street, right? These were things that, after living on the West Coast and seeing the level of acceptance for one another, it just wasn't something that was okay with me, right? So I didn't know how to do nonprofit work. I didn't know how to make a change in my city. I had no idea. In full transparency, I had even less of an idea of how to paint a mural. And we just started a Kickstarter campaign because I was just going to raise hell, and disrupt and anger people with the murals that we were going to paint to get people's attention and start a movement. And what I told everybody when we started was, I was like, look, my son is going to graduate high school in 10 years from today, right? I'm going to give my hometown and you all 10 years, and then I'm out because I am moving back west or I'm going to move overseas. Um, whatever it is, I ain't going to be here. And once he graduates high school, my obligation is done. And so the wall started in June, officially in June of 2012. My son was scheduled to graduate in May of 2022. And therefore, I was going to leave at the 10-year mark. And so I built the walls from the very beginning with the idea that it was never going to be about me and it was never going to be predicated on my involvement. And I think that that actually matters on how you begin the approach. And so the legacy, leaving a legacy, that didn't really occur to me when I started it. I just knew that what I was living in was intolerable to me, and I was going to do something about it, but I didn't know what, right? And I build with other people, and it didn't take me very long. I mean, I think the first talk that I ever gave, which was really uncomfortable for me, the first talk I gave was at the downtown development district to get permission to paint the first mural from the late Davis Rohr. And I think I cried twice during like a 5-minute presentation because I was so nervous. And I just explained to everybody the rule, we're going to build the walls on a very simple math equation: 10 times 10 times 10. We started with 10 co-founders, right? All entrepreneurs, all developers, and people who wanted to see change. We were going to have every of those original 10 bring 10 people in to be 100. And then we were going to take that 100 and multiply it by 10. In a small town like Baton Rouge, I felt like 1,000 people could really make a difference. And if we could just build it to that point, then we could kind of like figure out all the things that everyone wanted to work on. And that's really the true origins of the walls when it started. And then that just built, and then you could multiply it by another 10 after that, and then another 10 after that, because when you really add up all the MLK Fest, the huge Juneteenth events that we do in Dallas, all the murals, all the trees that we've planted, all the kids that we've trained in the Futures Fund, I mean, you're starting to look at, well north of 100,000 people. And at some point, I really do feel confident that this will be a movement of millions of people. And that's the legacy. That's the kind of legacy that I'm proud to stand next to everybody else with, you know?
Oh, that's amazing, Casey. And congratulations on everything y'all have done to date. And I have no doubt because, just I didn't realize, I knew that you were in Dallas. I didn't realize there was 2 locations in Colorado. And so I love that this is scalable in that way, that you can go into whatever cities might have a need for this program or organization and be able to put a chapter there. Would you call it a chapter? I'm not sure, but you're able to have a walls project there that's doing all these things. The other thing you mentioned, that first mural, and I wanted to say this earlier when you were talking about One Rouge and the drivers of poverty. That's Casey didn't mention this, but one of the things that they do is you select a different artist, and y'all have actually done murals around Baton Rouge, and like each mural, right, is dedicated to one of the drivers of poverty. Like I know downtown Ellen has one down there, right? Ellen Ogden. And there's more. But what I wanted you to mention those, and there's probably a place on the website you can see the photos of these if you're not in Baton Rouge, or at least get the addresses and go check them out. But I wanted you to speak on that for just a moment because I meant to mention it earlier when you were talking about One Rouge.
Yeah, so One Rouge, the mural series really kind of began with the expansion into Dallas. Yeah, we brought our programs to Dallas, but we entered Dallas in the United Way of Metropolitan Dallas's Social Innovation Accelerator program that we applied to, and we were accepted. And it's kind of basically a Shark Tank. It's like Shark Tank for nonprofits in Dallas, and the prize money can be anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000. But again, all kind of different currencies. The currency that really opens up is the jet stream into Dallas, with all the mentors and everybody that's surrounding that particular entity is much different than United Ways in other cities. And I mean, that's a separate conversation. But through that work, we began working with the city of Dallas. And at the time, their mayor, Mayor Rollins, had started a task force around the 9 drivers of poverty that was based on a white paper out of UC Berkeley and HUD in 1978, based around the hypothesis of poverty. And what I quickly realized is that you know we keep attacking these isms and these problems in a silo. And I hate the word, there's a certain words that I can barely say out loud anymore because of nonprofit jargon. They say it so much, like the 3 C's, right? Community, creativity, and connectivity, and all these. They get so overused that they almost lose their meanings. But you can't address food insecurity if you're not also looking at families' ability of access to transportation, social mobility, if you're not also looking at what the education that them and their families are able to access, what jobs they're able to access, all of these things impact food insecurity. So if you have a program just like SNAP and you think or the food bank and SNAP is going to magic wand fix everything, that's the problem, right? They're great programs and they're great entities, but there's a much more holistic approach that's necessary. So the 9 drivers of poverty theorem is really around the intersectionality of all 9 of those are all hitting at the same time. And look, at the end of the day, you can give people food, but if they don't have a safe and a place to live, if you can give people a laptop and access to the internet, what good does that do them if they're living under the interstate? Right? You have to think of this holistically. And so that model in Dallas was ultimately just a white paper that was sitting as shelf art. We took it off the shelf and turned that shit into a movement in Baton Rouge with the Walls Project. We weren't capable of doing anything that complex. I'll just be very honest. I'll speak to myself. I don't have the academic acumen to be able to really wrap my head around something that's that heady and that layered. And that's why we brought in the partnership with Metromorphosis. We like to affectionately say that the walls is the art and they're the science, right?
Oh, yeah.
And through that work, we began building this collective impact model. And we thought that murals was a great way to kind of debut what these issues were and start hosting living room sessions almost as practice to the bigger work that we wanted to do. And really, instead of us speaking on let's just say equal pay, well, we got Summer Stibe from the LSU Women's Center. We had folks from the governor's office at the time who did, Amanda dedicated her career towards advancing equal pay for women. And they're the ones that we put out front and let them speak about the work and to bring attention to the work they're doing, and then paint a mural to then, contextualize it for people and make it where they can't ignore it. And I mean, trust, there's a reason why we painted the equal pay mural 2 blocks away from the state capitol, right? And that every lawyer and lobbyist coming out of the buildings that they come out of have to see it. And I love whenever it comes up in conversation and people are like, I hate that mural. It seems like she's angry. And I'm like, yeah, she is. And I was like, and I'm glad that it makes you uncomfortable. And I'm glad that you have to think about it, because if not, you probably wouldn't pay too much attention to that on the golf course at your country club.
Absolutely. It's yeah, I don't hate the mural, Casey. I'm just letting you know. I think
Bless,
it's
love
great.
that. Hey, look, man, as long as people are talking about art and not just, LSU football, it's a win. And go Tigers. All about, be about football and art at the same time. Have some multi-dimensional, folks, come on.
Okay, you said multidimensional, and let's
Hmm.
talk about multi planetary, right?
Mm.
You mentioned
Hmm.
that. So since we're talking about multi thing, we're multidimensional beings and we live in a multiverse, and Earth isn't the only planet. And so let's just, where are you at with that? What's happening? Or
Um,
is there something you were talking about earlier about maybe?
No, no, you're great. No, you're
Yeah.
great. I said, yeah, no, you're great. I was just trying to figure out like the most concise way of actually like leading into it. So, um, I'm actually, talking to you today from the Baton Rouge headquarters for the Walls, and my incredible like successor just actually walked in the door, and the reality is that we're here on this planet for a certain period of time, right? All the beings on this planet have a shelf life, and I know that that's something that's really difficult for a lot of people to wrap their minds around, and I'm convinced that I really do feel like that's ultimately one of the main. I could actually say that I think most people, every business decision, every decision to go to church, and a lot of all the major decisions that people make, ultimately, I believe, are them trying to resolve their mortality, right? And I think that it's involved in every decision that people make, and then of course a little bit of the relationship with their mother and father. But nobody's paying me to be their therapist in this moment. And being that there is a limited amount of heartbeats here, as a species, it is important that our species think about our future, right? And the inevitable, it's without question, our sun will eventually die. The core of our planet will finish spinning at such a rate that it is that the magnetic field around that creates our atmosphere will disappear, and the Milky Way will be no more, and it will no longer exist. That's a fact. There's also a high probability that a big rock is going to fly through our solar system and smash into our beloved Earth, Mother Earth, and probably cause a few waves, if you don't mind me using the metaphor. So I thoroughly believe that the ensuring the existence of our species is ultimately my highest calling, right? And it is not my calling alone. I am part of a continuum that came before me and will continue after all of us. But that is ultimately that's my why. That's every single day, is that I feel like I was put on this planet in this moment in time to prepare the human race to become interplanetary. And when I used to say that, back in the early 2000s, people would kind of laugh at me and stuff like that, and that's fine. And when I moved from Los Angeles, I actually took a road trip and posed as a writer for the LA Times and snuck my way all the way into the spaceport that Richard Branson built in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. It was still under construction, and I talked my way all the way inside of it and stood there. And I don't post on social. I haven't been on social in eons. But if you go into my LinkedIn, there's only like one picture on there, and it's me holding one finger up in front of the spaceport in 2011. And to be very clear on what my intention is that I am here to work with the millions of people who are already engaged in this frequency, to prepare the human race to colonize Mars, and to be on the moon and Mars and beyond. And I know colonize is a super dirty word in my work of community development. I've yet to find a better word to talk about going to a new planet and starting colonies, but I welcome people's vernacular to make it less imperialistic. But at some point, it's not going to be a military operation anymore, and we're going to have societies on other planets. And I lay in bed at night, and people worry about a lot of things like bills and who the president is and this and that. I just lay in bed and I'm like, is there going to be a police force on the moon after it's a military operation? And is it going to look like BRPD or Dallas PD? And I hope not, right? Like I'm hoping for something greater, right? And I don't have all the answers, Kelly. None of us do, but I want to work with the millions of people who are going to be thinking about this, and to think about like what the society of the futures could actually be off planet. And and as we come to a consensus on what these new models are, this is the hope that I hope to, this is the models, and this is the hope that I hope to bring back into neighborhoods in North Baton Rouge and in South Dallas and East Denver and everywhere that we work, and share it openly and without, gatekeeping. And, because it's real cute. It's cute to talk about dismantling the government and to burn the system down. So the anarchist and the Doge fans right now, but what's your plan? Like, what's the plan to replace what you're dismantling and what you want to burn down? And if the sheer fact is you just want to watch it burn and want anarchy to run amok, well, I'm like, well, that's so cute. It's like, good for you. And as Southerners say, bless your heart. Isn't that cute? It's a lot harder to actually have a plan and to get consensus around it and work with one another and actually, like, evolve it and to come up with something so radical that people actually get excited and want to follow it, um, as opposed to just burning things down. And I got to share space, and I'll pause here so that you can ask another question and it doesn't become a rambling podcast. But I got to share space last month with Reverend Tutu's daughter, from, the South African movement, with Reverend Tutu. And she whispered into the microphone a African proverb that I thought in this moment is very poignant and very apropos. It's like when the dam is broken and the flood waters are coming in, down into the valley, idiots start wars, wise men build bridges.
Mm,
And for me, I want to build a bridge all the way to Mars and all the way to the moon. And I want it to be part of the society that gives us a chance to get it right and to have evolution. And love or hate Elon Musk and Richard Branson and Bezos and the billionaires that everybody likes to like shrug their shoulders at. Dude, they're doing shit that you could never imagine.
mhm,
And give respect where respect is that SpaceX is literally launching rockets and landing them back and not wasting, and the private sector is doing incredible things in space. And do I agree with everything that SpaceX is doing or Tesla or Elon on Twitter? No, man, I don't. But at some point, everybody's got to get their head out of their ass and with their litmus test of purity and just realize that we're all in this together and we got to work together in order to ensure the survival of our species. And as said, and that, this is the woo-woo part, full woo-woo disclaimer. After all the years of being like aggressive by nature and peaceful by choice, my wife has always been right. The most powerful weapon of all is going to be love.
mhm.
And until humans really truly learn how to love themselves and love one another, all the business models won't matter. Nobody's going to remember our civilization because of our State Farm insurance plans, right? Love is ultimately going to be what propels us into the stars and will cut across galaxies, that and gravity. So, anywho, so
Oh,
if you're hearing this and you just think that it's crazy talk, it's cool. I'll see you in about a decade. We'll
well,
see.
look, it's not crazy talk to me. I was actually probably last month, I was like going down the rabbit hole on looking on some of these civilizations they're creating for Mars. It's like some of the prototypes for the different kinds of living spaces and
Mhm.
proposed, some of these, and you can actually sign up now. Like some of these, they're not American companies, and I can't think of the name off the top of my head. I will add to the show notes if I do, and also along with Casey's information so y'all can look up more. But one thing that came to mind too, I'm with you on this, and I like to read about this kind of thing that you're talking about too. Like I like to kind of stay up to date-ish on things that are happening in this realm of possibility for the future. And I get excited about it. And one thing I think of, like you, and you were kind of talking and speaking to government and police and whatnot. And what I think of is, so you go to a new planet. Guys, it's kind of like a fresh start. We're not going to like overconsume there, right? Like don't take the same problems that we have created on Earth with the litter and all of these things and go do it somewhere else. Like it's an opportunity to really learn from our mistakes, right? And evaluate what have we done here on Earth and what has worked and what is no longer serving us, right? And what can we what can we change and what can we do differently so that we do set ourselves up to thrive. And look, it's not that we haven't thrived on Earth, but we've also have some habits as humans that have not been the best for Mother Nature or Mother Earth. And I think that our next home planet, if that's Mars or wherever, uh, we can treat it with more intention and more kindness, right? I feel like
Yeah, and it kind of comes back to something that you said earlier, and I kind of chuckled and I decided not to be snarky
Mhm.
to make the point is that we all will age. That's an inevitable. Aging is inevitable. Wisdom is not. Wisdom, you have to work for it. You actually have to be open to it and you have to actually work for wisdom. Yeah, you're going to get old, but it doesn't mean that you're going to get wise. The same thing goes with the human race as we go to another planet. Yeah, we'll become multi-planetary, but that doesn't mean that we'll evolve, right? We are in a moment of evolution with AI, with
Oh,
cyborg. This is actually an evolutionary inflection point. And it's very important what we do right now. It's very important. It's critical. In the same way that, as you move from your 40s to 50s to 60s to 70s, some folks get more set in their ways. They almost seem to think in reverse, and they don't just need diapers on their bottoms. They really should have it across their mouths. But then you have the folks who are the wise elders, right? Who you sit inside the TP with, and you listen with reverence and respect, and you listen to their wisdom, you internalize it, and you turn it into your own, and it makes the frequency of the entire planet better. We have that opportunity right now, but the question is it going to be about money, power, and greed, or is it in fact going to be about each other? And again, you can't serve others if you don't love others, and you certainly can't love others if you don't love yourself. So, yeah.
can you say it louder so the people in the back can hear? Guys,
Yeah,
look,
that thing.
Casey, I don't know if you know this. The tagline of my company, What You Want, is raising the vibration of love on earth. And so everything you're talking about, and with his wife, Alexis, I'm mentioning her name. I hope that's okay. She is, by the way, the most talented artist, painting artist, as well as a musician artist. She sings and plays the ukulele and guitar, and she is an angel, like you said. But I agree with Alexis and with what you're saying that love is, I mean, like love, that's what my mission now is. What I feel like my purpose is raising the vibration of love on earth and in all the ways. And part of the way I do that is, like I say, I call myself your self-love bestie, is by turning that attention inward on yourself and paying attention to the relationship that you have with yourself. Because when we love ourselves more, we can love others more, and we can love humanity more. And it's just a big love fest. Who doesn't want a big love fest? I know I do. I love love.
I have nothing to add. Beautiful.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
beautiful.
Casey, okay, so I'm going to put this in the show notes, but let's give a little rundown of where people can find you online, and if remind them one more time what cities y'all are in, and just any little, and if and what upcoming event, because this is actually going to air the first week of March. So what might y'all have coming up if someone wants to get involved?
Cool. Well, so you won't be able to find me because I'm invisible online. However, you can always go to www.thewallsproject.org. That's my radio voice. Best free job I ever did. I was a DJ at WTUL at midnight in New Orleans in my years that I've lived in New Orleans. It was the best job ever. So wallsproject.org. Please log on and support if you like what you hear on this today. We're headquartered, we are founded and headquartered and always shall be headquartered in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, proudly in downtown for like almost the last 15 years. We also are located in Fair Park in Dallas, Texas. We primarily work in Fair Park and in Mill City and the surrounding neighborhoods around where most people know the Cotton Bowl is. That's our area there. And then in the East Denver area around Aurora, in Globeville. And so if you would like to get in the work, involved in the work, you can always go to the website. We have a huge Earth Day celebrations, our Earth Day Festival of Service. We will be doing community cleanups, painting murals, repairing elders' homes, planting trees, updating community gardens, youth art activations, healthy living zones via our sponsor at Sprouts Foundation. That's coming up in April in all the cities. They're happening between April 19th and 26th. And then our huge Juneteenth event is that I've referenced before is in Dallas inside of Fair Park. And you can always get involved in our youth programs. If you are in Louisiana, you can always come and volunteer at our Baton Rouge Community Farm at Breck Howell Park in North Baton Rouge in 70805. And just in general, if you want to do good in this world, you can either volunteer directly with our organization or you can log into the Friday calls on Zoom and get access to the hundreds of organizations that are truly serving humankind every single day. Did I answer all the questions? Is there anything that I missed there, Kelly?
It sounds like you got it all. And guys, again, I want to thank you, Casey. I understand and appreciate that you have reached a point in your life where you are like, I'm going to let my amazing team do the interviews. Like, I'm on to the next phase of my life, and I've got these people who it's their time to shine in this area. And I really love that you have reached the point in your career where you've been able to do that. And I so appreciate that you bent your own rule a little and joined me today because I got so much from this conversation. And I am positive that everyone else who's tuning in did as well. You are truly someone that I have a lot of respect for, and I always enjoy your energy, your presence. You're someone who radiates positivity. Look, you can make the jokes, the snarky comments. That's part of your personality. That doesn't change the fact that you are a radiant being who really shines brightly. And I'm grateful to know you. And I'm grateful that everyone tuning in has the opportunity to get you to know you a little better today as well. So
Oh, you're
thank you.
kind. You're
Thank you.
kind. You're kind. And I did want to just say, if we're laying it all out, the reason why I'm doing this segment with you is because I do know that where your heart and your intention is to help people, and that's one thing. But truly, you deserve it. You've put so much heart and energy into the city that we live in, and you have always supported the walls and asked for absolutely nothing in return, like nothing at all. And that is a gift. And anybody who hears this that has volunteered with the walls over the last 13 plus years, I love all of you, and I love people. But and I am so deeply appreciative to every single person who has ever volunteered or the incredible artists who have been paid, right? And that's part of our mission, but who have created with us and created what is known as the walls. I live in gratitude for the trust that you all have put in us to be able to do this work. And I am here, Kelly, because I believe that you have deserved that space for people to support what you're doing. So if there is a way to support Kelly, I like to raise money for a living. I would like to raise currency for this human. Please support her. Be a part of it. Whatever she asks you to do it. Don't ask questions, just do it. And as I said, and who knows what it'll lead to, and both for her and the world. So thank you for the time today, Kelly. I am truly honored to be here.
Same, appreciate you. And give my love to that beautiful wife we talked about. And thank you, guys. I'll put everything in the show notes.
Thank you for tuning in to Dreamed It, Then Real Lifed It. I hope today's episode sparked something powerful within you. Remember, every step you take towards your vision counts, no matter how small. If you enjoyed today's conversation, please take a second to hit that subscribe button or leave a review. That would be amazing. Or share the podcast with someone who's ready to bring their dreams into reality too. And if you're looking to dive deeper, connect with me on social media at Dreamed It, Then Real Lifed It, or at BE_what you want. Or visit dreameditthenreallifedit.us for more resources on aligning your life, business, and dreams. Until next time, keep dreaming and keep manifesting your dreams into real life. Love you, friends.